Part 1: The Forbidden Emperor's Diary, the Hook and Strategic Foundation. Right now, as you sit reading these exact words on your screen, you are actively participating in a psychological matrix designed to keep your mind fractured, your anxiety elevated, and your focus permanently commodified. Every single notification, every algorithmic trend, and every social media feedback loop in modern America is engineered to do one thing: strip you of your internal sovereignty and make you reactive to external noise. Most people spend their entire lives completely blind to this modern cognitive slavery, reacting like helpless puppets to the opinions of strangers, the fear of missing out, and the crushing weight of existential stress. But what if you possessed a mental armor so absolute that no economic crisis, no corporate toxicity, no social media outrage, and no personal betrayal could ever breach your mental peace? Nearly 2,000 years ago, the most powerful man on earth sat in a dimly lit military tent on the brutal, freezing Roman frontier. He was not just a politician, he was the absolute autocrat of the Roman Empire, holding life and death dominion over a third of the global population. He had unlimited wealth, supreme authority, and total access to every physical pleasure imaginable. Yet, he faced a crumbling economy, a devastating biological pandemic that was wiping out his citizens, systemic political betrayals from his closest allies, and constant border warfare. Instead of escaping into luxury or turning into a brutal tyrant, he did something completely unprecedented. Every single night, he opened a private leather-bound journal and wrote a raw, fiercely practical, and highly classified psychological survival manual. He did not write it for the public, for fame, or for historical applause. He wrote it purely as a self-diagnostic tool to master his own mind, conquer his fears, and survive the crushing weight of absolute power. For centuries, these private pages were hidden away, a forbidden psychological blueprint of ultimate mental resilience. This text is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, the foundational cornerstone of Stoic philosophy. This is not dry, academic, classroom philosophy. This is a battle-tested operational guide for psychological warfare against your own weaknesses. If you are exhausted from feeling chronically overwhelmed, constantly reactive, anxious about the future, or trapped by the opinions of a hypercritical society, you need to pay close attention to every single syllable of this 12-part comprehensive breakdown. We have completely decoded the raw ancient text and modern behavioral psychology to give you the ultimate mental operating system engineered specifically to help you dominate your reality. Watch until the very end, because by the time this structural blueprint is complete, you will hold the keys to absolute mental invincibility, and you will never view your life, your problems, or your internal power the same way again. Let us enter the mind of the Emperor. Part 2: The Anatomy of Control, the Dichotomy of Reality. To install the software of absolute mental invincibility into your brain, you must first master the foundational axiom of Marcus Aurelius's entire psychological framework. It is a concept modern behavioral psychologists call the dichotomy of control. The Emperor strips away all the hypercomplex layers of human existential anxiety and divides the entire universe into two cold, uncompromising, and mathematically precise columns. Column A consists of the things that are completely, 100% within your direct control. This column is remarkably small. It includes only your own thoughts, your intentions, your personal values, your emotional responses, and how you choose to react to a given situation. Column B consists of literally everything else in existence. This column is infinitely large. It includes the state of the modern economy, the unpredictable behavior of your boss, the algorithmic changes on digital platforms, the traffic on your morning commute, the political landscape, your physical genetics, weather patterns, and the thoughts, actions, and opinions of every other human being around you. The ultimate root of all modern American suffering, the chronic anxiety, the late-night insomnia, the burnout, and the existential dread, stems from a singular, massive cognitive error. Humans continuously burn 100% of their limited mental bandwidth trying to force, manipulate, and control the variables sitting in column B, while completely neglecting the sovereign fortress of column A. Marcus Aurelius watched his elite senators panic over political rumors, his generals lose their minds over shifting weather conditions on the Germanic borders, and ordinary citizens spiral into depression over events they had zero power to change. He looked at this behavior and declared it to be a form of literal madness. He wrote to himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Think about how this applies to your current professional and personal reality. When you wake up and immediately scroll through negative news feeds or panic about a sudden restructuring at your corporate workplace, your brain is actively hemorrhaging its vital cognitive energy into column B. You cannot stop a company layoff. You cannot force a client to sign a contract. You cannot control what people say about your character behind your back. When you stress over these variables, you are voluntarily handing the keys to your emotional kingdom to random external forces. You are choosing to be a slave to fortune. A straight-thinking master of psychology immediately stops the bleed. The moment an unexpected problem strikes, they ask a single diagnostic question: is this variable in column A or column B? If it is in column B, they consciously withdraw their emotional investment. They accept it completely as a fixed parameter of reality, adapt instantly, and reallocate 100% of their focus onto their own execution in column A. You do not win the game of life by trying to control the wind. You win by mastering the alignment of your own sails. Part 3. The Illusion of Prestige: Deconstructing Social Validation. Let us execute a brutal, calculated deconstruction of one of the most toxic psychological addictions plaguing modern Western culture: the desperate, endless hunt for social status, public prestige, and external validation. We live in an economic ecosystem engineered to monetize your insecurities. Capitalism thrives by convincing you that you are fundamentally incomplete unless you wear a specific designer logo, drive an expensive consumer vehicle, or collect digital approval metrics from an online audience. Marcus Aurelius lived at the absolute apex of human prestige. He sat on a golden throne. Whenever he walked into a room, thousands of elite citizens bowed their heads in absolute reverence. His name was carved into marble monuments, and his decrees altered the fate of nations. If anyone had the right to indulge in the intoxicating high of status and fame, it was him. Yet, as he looked out at the crowds of sycophants who praised him daily, his practical, analytical mind saw through the entire matrix of social validation. He recognized that public applause is not a tangible asset. It is a fickle, highly volatile, and completely hollow illusion. To maintain his absolute humility and protect his mind from the poison of arrogance, Marcus developed a brilliant psychological technique called functional deconstruction. Whenever he was presented with a luxury item or an elite title that society worshipped, he would mentally strip away its prestige and analyze its raw, physical components. When he looked at his royal purple robes, the ultimate ancient symbol of dynastic wealth and power, he wrote in his journal that it was nothing more than sheep's wool dyed in the blood of a sea snail. When he sat down at an extravagant imperial banquet, he reminded himself that the expensive roasted meat on his golden plate was merely the dead corpse of a pig or a bird, and the vintage, high-priced wine was nothing but fermented grape juice. He applied this exact same clinical analysis to the praise of other people. He realized that the individuals who applaud you today are the exact same individuals who will criticize you tomorrow based on nothing more than their own shifting moods, internal biases, and personal agendas. He asked himself, "Are you angry because you don't get your share of praise? Look at the people who praise you. Are they not the same people who are trapped in their own ignorance, vanity, and internal misery? When you chase the approval of a corporate boss, a social circle, or an internet audience, you are placing your self-worth into the hands of people who are themselves deeply insecure and emotionally fractured. You are letting blind people judge your vision. The next time you feel an intense urge to buy a status symbol you cannot afford, or find yourself spiraling because someone left a hypercritical comment on your profile, execute the emperor's deconstruction. Strip the object or the opinion down to its bare, raw reality. A luxury car is just a metal box on rubber wheels designed to transport a biological body from point A to point B. An insulting comment is just a sequence of pixels generated by an insecure stranger typing on a glass screen. Prestige is an empty ghost. True power belongs to the individual who needs zero external applause to validate their internal excellence. Part 4. The Fortress of the Mind: Reframing Perception as a Weapon. One of the most liberating truths you will ever install into your psychological architecture is the realization that no human being, no external event, and no economic tragedy has the structural capacity to hurt you. It is physically and neurologically impossible for an outside circumstance to cause emotional suffering inside your consciousness. The event itself is entirely neutral. It carries zero inherent emotional charge. The pain you experience is a pure product of a single variable, your internal perception. Marcus Aurelius laid down the absolute blueprint for cognitive behavioral therapy thousands of years before modern psychology caught up. He wrote a line that should be permanently etched into your awareness. Reject your sense of injury and the injury itself disappears. He understood that our brains do not interact with reality as it objectively exists. We interact with reality through the filter of our own internal interpretations, judgments, and stories. Imagine two colleagues who are both suddenly laid off from their high-paying corporate roles due to an unexpected company downsizing. The first colleague views this event through a catastrophic lens of victimization. Their internal narrative shouts, "My career is completely ruined. I have been treated unfairly. This is a total disaster." This perception immediately triggers a chemical cascade of cortisol and adrenaline, plunging them into a state of paralyzing depression, chronic stress, and behavioral stagnation. The second colleague looks at the exact same objective event, the termination of employment, but applies a completely different psychological filter. Their internal narrative states, "My time at this firm has concluded. This is the exact catalyst I needed to launch my own private digital enterprise and claim absolute freedom over my schedule." This perception triggers a state of high-energy focus, strategic clarity, and immediate, aggressive execution. The objective external event was identical for both individuals, but the internal reality was completely polarized. The first person let the event destroy them, the second person used the event as a launchpad. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that he had the sovereign power to choose his own interpretations. If a general lost a critical battle, or if a close political ally stabbed him in the back, he would consciously refuse to label the event as bad or evil. He viewed it simply as a dynamic data point, a fixed condition on the chessboard of reality. He realized that your mind is an internal citadel. No one can force their way inside to alter your thoughts unless you voluntarily open the gates. The next time chaos strikes your life, or someone attacks your reputation, do not allow your brain to run its default programming of victimization. Stop the automatic generation of emotional stories. Look at the event with cold, objective, scientific clarity. Separate the raw facts of the situation from your emotional judgments. The event is just an event, your perception is the weapon. Choose to frame every single disruption as an elite training ground designed to forge your resilience. Part 5. The Sovereign Mindset: Conquering the Monster of Anxiety. Anxiety is the defining psychological pandemic of modern America. We live in a culture that is chronically obsessed with projecting its awareness into an imaginary, terrifying future. We play endless mental simulations of worst-case scenarios. What if the economy enters a deep recession? What if my business venture fails? What if my health breaks down? What if I end up broke and alone? This continuous, obsessive time-traveling of the mind creates a state of permanent low-grade panic that completely paralyzes our capacity for executive action in the present moment. Marcus Aurelius sat in his military command tent, looking out into the pitch-black darkness of the northern forests. He knew that the next morning, a brutal battle would commence that could cost him his life and collapse the entire Roman frontier. He felt the exact same heavy, suffocating wave of anxiety that you feel before a high-stakes corporate presentation or a major life transition. But instead of letting his mind panic, he took his pen and wrote a profound psychological anchor. Anxiety is not an external entity waiting to ambush you. You do not suffer from the future. You suffer from your own imagination. He realized that the future does not exist, it is a ghost. The only piece of reality that you actually occupy is the razor-sharp boundary of the present microsecond. He reminded himself that whenever the future arrived, he would face it using the exact same internal tools, strategic clarity, and psychological resilience that he was currently using to dominate the present moment. He wrote, "Never let the future disturb you. You will meet it, if you must, with the same weapons of reason which today arm you against the present. When you analyze your anxiety with straight-thinking precision, you realize that it is a completely irrational expenditure of your biological energy. You are suffering in advance for problems that may never actually materialize in reality. And even if those problems do manifest, your worrying today does absolutely nothing to upgrade your capacity to solve them tomorrow. In fact, it actively downgrades your current executive function, clouding your judgment and draining your focus. The next time your mind begins to spin out of control into a vortex of future panic, execute an immediate psychological hard reset. Bring your awareness entirely back to the current room you are sitting in, the exact task you are executing, and the next single action you need to take. Break your day down into micro steps. You do not have to solve the problems of the next 6 months today. You only have to execute the next 5 minutes with absolute excellence. The present moment is the only terrain where you possess complete, unshakable sovereignty. Reclaim it from the ghosts of your imagination. Part 6. The Gift of Embracing Obstacles, the Blueprint of a More FATI. There is a flawed, highly fragile narrative taught in modern self-help culture that implies a successful life is one that is completely free of conflict, failure, and disruption. We are conditioned to believe that when an obstacle blocks our path, a sudden financial crisis, a major health issue, or a severe corporate roadblock, our progress has been permanently halted. We view the obstacle as a hostile enemy that has ruined our plans, leading us to waste immense emotional energy complaining about our bad luck. But Marcus Aurelius introduces a revolutionary psychological paradigm that completely flips this narrative on its head. It is a philosophy that Friedrich Nietzsche later popularized as amor fati, the radical, absolute love of your fate. Marcus did not just tolerate obstacles, he actively celebrated them as the ultimate currency of human growth. He wrote one of the most famous, historically transformative passages in the entire history of philosophy. The mind adapts and converts to its own purposes the obstacle to our acting. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. To understand this concept with absolute clarity, imagine a massive, raging bonfire. If you throw a bucket of water onto a tiny, fragile flame, you will completely extinguish it. But if a bonfire is burning with intense heat and power, and you dump a massive pile of dry logs, debris, and heavy wood onto it, the fire does not stop burning. Instead, it aggressively consumes the debris, uses it as raw fuel to increase its internal temperature, and grows 10 times larger and more fierce. You must train your subconscious mind to act exactly like that roaring bonfire. When an unexpected disaster strikes your career or your personal life, you must refuse to view it as a structural interruption to your path. You must realize that the disruption is the path. If a business venture fails and you lose your capital, that is not a disaster, that is a high-value, elite masterclass in risk management and operational resilience. If a trusted partner betrays you, that is not a tragedy, that is a powerful catalyst to develop absolute self-reliance and emotional independence. An obstacle is nothing more than a customized gymnasium designed by reality to test your vulnerabilities and upgrade your mental capacity. When you adopt this mindset, you become completely unkillable in the economic and social matrix. You no longer fear bad news or sudden market shifts, because you know that whatever chaos the universe throws at you, you possess the internal alchemy to convert that garbage into pure operational fuel for your own advancement. You stop wishing for an easy life, and start demanding the strength to conquer a difficult one. Part 7. The Strategic Antidote: Mastering the Chaos of Toxic People. No matter how much money you accumulate, or how high you climb up the ladder of professional success, you will never be able to escape the reality of human behavior. You will continuously encounter individuals who are deeply insecure, passive-aggressive, manipulative, intensely jealous, and structurally toxic. They will try to disrupt your focus, sabotage your projects, and drag you down into their own internal emotional swamps. If you do not possess a bulletproof strategic shield to handle these interactions, you will waste immense cognitive bandwidth fighting useless social battles. Marcus Aurelius woke up every single morning knowing he had to step out of his private quarters and interact with a royal court filled with deceitful politicians, greedy merchants, and treacherous advisors who were constantly plotting against him. He didn't let this reality ruin his mood or drain his peace of mind. Instead, before he ever spoke to a single human being, he executed a daily mental rehearsal, a strategic immunization technique. At the break of dawn, he would write to himself, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they cannot distinguish good from evil. But I have seen the beauty of good, and the ugliness of evil, and I have recognized that the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own. None of them can hurt me." This morning routine contains a masterclass in behavioral psychology. Notice that the emperor does not experience anger or shock when people act maliciously. He expects it as a baseline parameter of human nature. Most of your modern social frustration stems from a single cognitive failure. You expect toxic people to act like rational, empathetic human beings, and when they inevitably act like toxic people, you become shocked, insulted, and emotionally reactive. This is equivalent to walking outside during a rainstorm and becoming furious that the water is making you wet. When someone betrays your trust, spreads a rumor about your character, or acts with passive-aggressive jealousy at your corporate workplace, do not take it personally. Realize that their toxic behavior is not a reflection of your value, it is a direct, external projection of their own internal psychological sickness, self-hatred, and mental insecurity. They are acting out their own unresolved trauma and cognitive blindness. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that a toxic person is like a wounded animal that knows no other way to interact with the world. He wrote that the ultimate revenge against a malicious person is to completely refuse to be like them. Do not let their poison force you to lower your standards, lose your temper, or react with vengeance. Maintain your absolute emotional detachment, look at them with cold clinical pity, neutralize their impact on your projects, and remain locked into your own high-level execution. Part 8. The Supreme Vectors Embracing Memento Mori as an Asset. Let us confront the absolute ultimate reality of human existence, a parameters chart that modern Western society spends its entire life desperately trying to ignore, hide, and sanitize through endless consumer distractions and medical anti-aging industries. It is the absolute certainty of your own inevitable death. We live our lives under a profound cognitive illusion that our time on this earth is infinite. We procrastinate on our biggest visions, tolerate toxic environments for years, and waste months arguing over petty social media politics because our brains subconsciously assume we have centuries left to play the game. Marcus Aurelius viewed this denial of mortality as a form of tragic strategic blindness. He installed the foundational Stoic discipline directly into his daily awareness. Memento mori, the continuous, active meditation on your own impending demise. He did not do this to become depressed, morbid, or paralyzed by fear. He used death as the ultimate, high-velocity psychological filter to strip away all the trivial garbage of his life and maximize his focus on what truly mattered. He wrote a line of absolute operational command to his own subconscious mind. "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." He understood that death is not a tragic event that happens at the far distant end of a timeline. Death is a silent process that is actively occurring right now, microsecond by microsecond, as the passing minutes of your life are permanently consumed by time. When you look at your daily problems through the absolute lens of memento mori, your entire psychological prioritization matrix undergoes an instant, radical upgrade. Imagine you are experiencing intense anxiety over an awkward corporate conversation, or you are deeply stressed because a business venture suffered a temporary setback, or you are holding on to a toxic grudge against a family member. Now, step out of your body, look down at your life from the cosmic perspective of your deathbed, and ask yourself, does this trivial issue matter at all in the grand scope of my limited existence? The answer is always an absolute, resounding no. Death is the ultimate solvent of human vanity. It instantly vaporizes all your petty insecurities, your fear of public rejection, your social anxieties, and your material greed. It leaves behind nothing but the raw, unadulterated essence of the present moment. It forces you to stop wasting your limited, non-renewable attention on things that add zero value to your soul. Stop living your life like an immortal ghost. Embrace the reality of your mortality not as a source of fear, but as your supreme strategic asset. Let it drive you to execute your vision with relentless urgency, love your people with absolute presence, and maintain an unshakable, smiling peace of mind amidst the chaotic matrix of the world. Part 9. The Cosmic Scale Destroying Ego Through the View from Above. One of the most insidious psychological traps that destroys your mental peace and distorts your strategic decision-making is the phenomenon of cognitive self-importance, the ego. The human brain is naturally wired to view reality entirely through its own localized, biological perspective. We subconsciously believe that we are the absolute center of the universe, which causes us to magnify our personal problems, our professional failures, and our social embarrassments into catastrophic, world-ending events. We lose our minds over a minor financial loss or a slight insult because our ego blows the situation out of all rational proportion. To systematically crush this cognitive distortion and maintain absolute mental clarity, Marcus Aurelius practiced a magnificent cognitive visualization exercise that modern psychologists refer to as the view from above. Whenever he felt overwhelmed by the administrative duties of managing the Roman Empire, or felt his ego rising due to imperial victory, he would mentally catapult his consciousness high into the atmosphere, looking down at the earth from a cosmic perspective. He wrote in his journal, describing this exercise, "Look at the immense crowd of humanity, their countless internal struggles, their endless wars, their festivals, their births and their deaths. Look at the total insignificance of your own localized corner of the earth. The whole earth is but a tiny speck in the vast cosmos, and how small a corner of it is your own current room. When you execute this visualization, you are deliberately stepping out of your narrow, emotional echo chamber and calibrated your mind to the actual scale of the universe. Imagine zooming out from your current desk, moving up past your city, past your nation, until you see the entire blue planet floating as a fragile, microscopic dot in a silent, infinite ocean of dark space. You see empires rise and fall like colonies of ants on a patch of dirt. You see entire generations of humans burn their lives away chasing status, only to be completely forgotten a century later. This cosmic perspective does not make your life meaningless. Rather, it beautifully liberates you from the artificial gravity of your self-inflicted suffering. It forces your ego to shrink back down to its actual size. You suddenly realize that your business failure, your career setback, or the hypercritical opinion of your social circle is so incredibly microscale that it doesn't even register on the timeline of reality. It allows you to approach your professional and personal life with a sense of light, stress-free playfulness. You are no longer carrying the crushing weight of the world on your shoulders. You are simply a passing traveler in a vast, beautiful cosmic dance. Use the view from above to dissolve your pride, vaporize your anxieties, and maintain a calm, bulletproof clarity in every room you step into. Part 10. The Biological Drive Rising to Execute Your True Purpose. One of the most universal behavioral struggles in modern high-comfort society is the constant, exhausting battle against procrastination, lethargy, and the addictive desire for continuous physical comfort. We live in a world of climate-controlled rooms, ultra-processed food, and high-speed digital entertainment designed to keep our dopamine systems permanently sedated. When the alarm goes off in the morning, our primitive brain immediately screams for survival comfort: stay in bed. It's too cold outside. You've worked hard enough. Scroll through your phone for another hour. We let our physical body dictate our mental direction, leading to a life of chronic unfulfilled potential. Marcus Aurelius was not a machine. He was a biological human being who suffered from the exact same physiological exhaustion and morning lethargy that you experience every single day. He hated getting out of his warm, comfortable bed, especially during the freezing, brutal winter campaigns on the Danube River. He felt the intense temptation to pull the heavy covers over his head and escape his imperial responsibilities. But he recognized that indulging in comfort is a direct violation of your true human purpose. He wrote a raw, internal dialogue to handle his own morning resistance, a passage that serves as the ultimate alarm clock for the soul. He wrote, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work, as a human being. What do I have to complain of, if I'm going to do what I was born for, the things I was brought into the world to do? Or is this what I was created for? To huddle under the blankets and stay warm? But this is more pleasant. So were you born to feel pleasant? Rather than to do things and experience them? Don't you see the plants, the birds, the ants and the bees going about their individual tasks, putting the world in order, as best they can? And you are not willing to do your job as a human being?" This passage strips away all the modern visual excuses for laziness. Marcus anchors his discipline not in a temporary emotional state of motivation, but in a cold, deep alignment with biological and cosmic duty. He looks at nature and realizes that every single living organism, from a microscopic bacteria to a hunting wolf, wakes up and immediately executes its operational design without complaining, without procrastinating, and without asking for a dopamine reward. When you choose comfort over execution, you are actively choosing to act below your biological design. You are turning into a parasitic consumer rather than an active creator in the matrix of reality. The next time your alarm rings and your brain begins to negotiate for 5 more minutes of sleep, do not engage in the discussion. Do not let your emotional child run your day. Remember that your physical body is merely a tool owned by your sovereign mind. Execute an immediate physical launch. Understand that true life satisfaction does not exist inside the stagnant swamp of continuous comfort. It is earned by stepping out onto the arena floor, doing your work with uncompromised excellence, and fulfilling your purpose as a straight-thinking force of nature. Part 11. The Seed of Evolution, the Logos, and the Law of Interconnection. To achieve a state of absolute, unshakable mental clarity, you must completely upgrade how you view your relationship with the world around you. Mainstream modern culture conditions us to think in deeply fragmented, hyper-individualistic terms. We view ourselves as isolated, independent biological entities trapped in a hostile, competitive environment where we must continuously fight against everyone else to secure our piece of the pie. This fragmented worldview generates a continuous underlying state of paranoia, loneliness, intense envy, and social friction. But Marcus Aurelius and the Stoic masters operated on a completely different, highly unified metaphysical blueprint. They believe that the entire universe is not a chaotic pile of random matter, but a single, living, highly organized organic system governed by an underlying cosmic intelligence, the Logos. They viewed humanity as a singular body, where every individual person is a vital, interconnected cell designed to work in absolute harmony to ensure the health of the entire organism. Marcus used a beautiful, highly practical anatomical metaphor to cement this concept into his daily interactions. He wrote, "We are made for cooperation, like feet, like hands, like the rows of the upper and lower teeth. To act against one another then is contrary to nature. And it is acting against one another to be vexed and to turn away from your fellow human being. When you shift your perspective from hyper-individualism to systemic interconnection, your entire behavioral framework undergoes a massive positive evolution. You suddenly realize that you cannot truly harm another human being without simultaneously harming yourself. If you act with greed, deceit, or malice at your workplace or in your personal life to secure a short-term advantage, you are effectively a cancer cell cutting off the blood supply to the neighboring tissue of your own body. You are fracturing your own internal alignment. This mindset completely eliminates the poison of envy and jealousy from your awareness. When you see a colleague achieve an extraordinary professional breakthrough or build a massive fortune, your ego no longer views it as a personal threat or a reason to feel left behind. Instead, you celebrate their victory as a win for the entire human collective. You realize that their progress upgrades the baseline potential of the entire ecosystem you inhabit. You stop viewing people as hostile competitors in a scarce matrix, and start viewing them as your teammates in the evolutionary journey of life. Treat every single human interaction as an opportunity to inject value, empathy, and integrity into the cosmic network. When you align your personal goals with the well-being of the collective, you unlock a limitless reservoir of systemic power, internal peace, and authentic social authority. Part 12. The Operational Command Claiming the Unconquerable Soul. We have traveled through a monumental, deep architectural exploration into the absolute mind of the Emperor. We have shattered the dangerous illusions of social prestige, mastered the dichotomy of control, turned our obstacles into operational fuel, immunized our focus against toxic personalities, weaponized the reality of our mortality, and expanded our awareness through the cosmic view from above. You now hold the complete, uncompromised structural software required to completely dominate your reality and insulate your mind from the exhausting noise of modern society. But as we close this definitive operational breakdown of meditations, you must realize that this knowledge is completely useless if it remains inside your head as nothing more than an intellectual theory. Philosophy is not a hobby for your weekend entertainment. Philosophy is an active, aggressive, second-by-second discipline of execution. Marcus Aurelius did not write his journal to pass an academic exam. He wrote it to stay sane on the battlefield of life. The ultimate destination of this journey is the complete reclamation of your unconquerable soul, the establishment of an internal state of being so perfectly aligned, so profoundly still, and so behaviorally disciplined that the entire world could fall apart into absolute chaos around you, yet you would remain standing with a calm smile, executing your duty with uncompromised excellence. To permanently format these 12 parts into your daily identity starting right now, here is your executive operational command blueprint. Command number 1. Ruthlessly filter every disruption through the dichotomy of control. Draw an absolute boundary line between column A and column B. Withdraw your emotional investment from outside events, market shifts, and other people's choices, and anchor 100% of your cognitive energy into your own thoughts and execution. Command number 2. Mentally deconstruct every status symbol and every piece of public opinion. Refuse to be a slave to consumer vanity or external applause. Remember that purple robes are just sea snail blood, and a critical comment is just a sequence of pixels. Find your validation entirely within your own character. Command number 3. Weaponize your perception. When an obstacle blocks your path, refuse to engage in the story of victimization. Act like the raging bonfire. Consume the debris, embrace the challenge through a more fatty, and convert the impediment into raw, aggressive fuel for your own advancement. Command number 4. Immunize your mind every morning against social toxicity. Expect people to be meddling, jealous, and dishonest, and see their actions as a reflection of their own internal blindness. Refuse to lower your standard to match their chaos. Look at them with clinical pity, and remain locked into your execution. Command number 5. Live with the sharp, beautiful presence of memento mori and the cosmic view from above. Let the certainty of your death dissolve your petty anxieties, pride, and fears. Look at the earth from the stars, realize the microscopic scale of your temporary problems, and claim your absolute freedom over your time. Stop waiting for a better environment, a better boss, a more stable economy, or a perfect life layout to find your strength. The perfect moment does not exist. The only reality that matters is the present microsecond sitting directly in front of you. Step onto the arena floor of your life, execute your purpose with unshakable discipline, protect your internal fortress, and dominate your destiny in complete silence. You are the master of your mind. Act like it.